and welcome to the Retro Odyssey podcast. I'm Steven, and with me as always is Matt. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's been a busy month.
What, just work or?
So work, but also starting up convention season. The thing I do that's basically a second unpaid job is making board games, and the company I do work with goes around to conventions to show off our games and sell them. So we started up in the middle of this month, and then we've got a few more slated for the next couple of months. So busy weekends for at least once a month for the next couple of months.
That's cool. I've never actually been to a convention.
It's definitely an interesting experience. I wouldn't recommend it for people that are easily overwhelmed by crowds. Like my wife, she doesn't do well in crowds. She gets claustrophobic. So, if she comes with us, she usually just ends up, staying at our table and hanging out behind us. But if you can handle the crowds and there's a con that is based around something you're interested in, I definitely recommend people check them out. I don't know what the convention scene is like in the UK. I know there are a ton all over the US at all times of year.
I'm not entirely sure about UK, but I'm fine with crowds. It's just socializing with huge groups of people is just a bit much.
Well, especially right now. Right now, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally, we would be doing more conventions than we are, but we're mostly sticking to ones that have more rigorous safety protocols, the mandatory mask wearing, the vaccine cards, negative tests, etc.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a lot of variance in the States with that, which is kind of horrifying. This country's a mess.
This one isn't much better, trust me.
Well, you've got a point. But anyway, instead of depressing ourselves, let's talk about happier things, like the things we've played this month.
Yes, more Oblivion, really.
I figured.
More Final Fantasy 14, but I've talked about that enough. But Oblivion, I am now the Guildmaster of the Fighters Guild, so I'm kind of a big deal. I'm almost through the Mages Guild quest line. I've literally got one quest left on the Mages Guild. I've done all of the Knights of the Nine DLC, which is some of the best armor in the game, so I'm pretty much unstoppable at the minute. I'm currently working my way through the Mehrunes Dagon DLC, which I've never done before. It's like this big underground city that you've got to infiltrate and find like a Daedric artifact. Now,
you say Dagon. I'm assuming it has no relation whatsoever to Lovecraft.
It is probably based on that, to be honest. I mean, there is one or two. In fact, I think it's just one quest which mentions a cult worshipping deep ones.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Then yeah. I guess it is.
Yeah, it's not kind of like explicit references. I mean, you don't have like Lovecraftian creatures and stuff like that, but right. References in terms of like names and stuff like that.
There's enough that if you know what you're looking at, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
But I've gone around and done a lot of the Daedric gods quests and stuff like that, and some of them give really, really useful stuff. I now have like an unbreakable lockpick, which nice. The lockpicking minigame is horrible. I hate it with a passion. So
I don't even remember what it is.
You have 6 cylinders that you have to like lift up.
Oh, is this the one where you have to tap where you have to tap the pegs up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. I hate it so much. It's absolutely horrible. So having an unbreakable lockpick means I can just spam auto attempt,
Right.
and I just don't have to bother with it at all.
Because I remember this one had that, and then Skyrim and Kingdoms of Amalur both had the one where you've got the two tools and you have to like rotate them to be at the right
Yeah,
positions. Okay.
yeah. The Skyrim one's bearable. I don't mind the Skyrim one, but the Oblivion one's horrible.
Yeah, I remember. Now that you say which one it is, I remember my brother struggling with that one.
But yeah, I've been playing that. I played a bit more Bejeweled 3 every couple years or so. I just get like this urge to play Bejeweled or one of the knockoffs like Jewel Quest, and so I went through that. I played a few hours of that and then uninstalled it again. I like to go in, have my fix for a few hours, and then forget about it for another couple of years.
Right.
But aside from that's really all I've been playing. Like Final Fantasy 14 has been taking up a lot of time, just getting other jobs leveled and stuff like that.
Right. See, you talk about every few years you get the urge to play, Bejeweled or something similar. That's exactly how I am with Puzzle Pirates.
Yeah.
Like every few years, I'll just go back and play around in it, and then leave because I don't have anyone in there with me. But in terms of what I've been playing, I actually haven't been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. Number one, my sub time ran out, and I haven't had the chance to pick more up yet. But I also got more engrossed in other things. My sister came and spent the weekend with us one weekend, and while she was here, she and I played Halo together, and that got me really wanting to dive back into Halo, which is what I did. So I've played all of the Bungie Halos this month, and I'm about to start working on the ones made by 343. So I've played a lot of first-person shooter this month, and I've been playing it on my brand new Xbox Series X.
Oh, you got one then?
Yeah, so I managed to find one through Xbox All Access. Even though none of the stores in my area had one, when I placed the Xbox All Access order, I was able to get it. So I'm assuming Microsoft has units set aside for that program.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it is a fantastic system. The load times are incredible, and I mean everything just looks nice. I've got a pretty good 4K TV, so I'm really enjoying that. It's just a good system, and I'm glad I have it.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I'll probably at some point pick one up. I'm sure. Probably not for a few years. Like, I always tend to get kind of like older systems when they're a little bit cheaper.
Right.
So yeah, probably a while.
See, that's how I normally am with PlayStation. The past couple of generations, I have been much more on top of Nintendo and Microsoft systems when they came out. I got the Xbox One and Wii U like a year after they released, and then I got the Switch on launch day and the Series X, about a year after. But PlayStation, I always end up usually getting towards the end. Like I got the PS3 after the PS4 came out, and I got the PS4 right before the PS5 came out.
Yeah.
Honestly, what will probably make me switch to the PS5 is when Final Fantasy 14 drops the PS4.
Yeah. I can't see that happening anytime soon.
That's the thing, is it's the PS4 and PS5 are so similar that there's not as much of an impetus to drop support for it like there was for the PS3, especially because it came out at the end of the PS3's life cycle.
Yeah, I mean they essentially only made the PS3 version because they promised that they would do it.
Right.
Like, otherwise they would have just gone straight for PS4, I think.
Yeah, and I think Yoshida has said that, which, I mean, massive respect for that. Like, it's not many game companies that would actually give a crap about what they said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not nearly as much Final Fantasy 14. There was a little bit. I'll probably get back in and finish up Shadowbringers this month.
Yeah, because I can usually tell roughly where you are because your trophies show up on my like PlayStation home screen.
Yeah, I always forget about that, and it'll be funny because I'll get one of the regular things like one of the challenges, or I'll get an achievement related to something from the base game, and it'll show up on my little thing as the Realm Reborn logo, and then I'll have a story achievement, and it'll be the Shadowbringers logo.
Yeah, it's the way they do it is just achievements that you can get without the expansions will have the Realm Reborn logo, and achievements that you can only get from a certain expansion will have those certain expansion logos.
Which is why all of my Gunbreaker achievements were Shadowbringers logos.
Hmm.
At least I think they were.
Yeah, there would have been because Gunbreaker and Dancer were Shadowbringers classes. So yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. There's lots of fun with the new Xbox. And then the only other thing is very, very recent, as in I picked up the game yesterday. The new Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's a different take on the Pokemon franchise. I haven't had a chance to actually play it yet because I had to go to work last night. But I can assure you that I will be heavily engrossed in Pokemon here in the next few months at least.
It does look like it has a lot of depth to keep you going for a long time.
Yeah, so I'll probably give more details next month after I've played a lot of it. But yeah, that's about it in terms of what I've played. It's been pretty singularly focused.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't have a ton in the way of releases. In terms of retro releases, I think the main one we have is the Kingdom Hearts franchise coming to Switch.
Yep. February the 10th, we have 1.5 and 2.5 remix in one collection. We have the 2.8 final chapter prologue, and we have Kingdom Hearts 3. So basically the exact same collections that are on PS4 and Xbox,
right,
are going to be available on Switch.
And I think the Remind DLC for 3 will also be available. But there is the big but.
The big but. This is a cloud game, basically, like not the cool cloud from Final Fantasy VII. This is the game we'll be playing via the cloud.
Yeah,
and apparently it does not play well via the cloud.
That's what I've heard, is that it does not run well on the Switch because of the streaming interface. I don't know. I don't know if you can improve that with a good internet connection, but everything I've seen has said just play it on the other consoles.
Yeah. I don't really understand why the Switch isn't able to do these. I mean, these games are several years old.
Well, here's the thing. The Switch can run Doom. The Switch can run Doom Eternal. You got to think, Doom Eternal came out in what, 2020? Or was it last year?
No, it was 2020.
Okay, Doom Eternal came out in 2020. The games that are in the 1.5, 2.5, and 2.8 collections, not counting the 0.2 basically tech demo for Kingdom Hearts 3, the most recent game out of all of those came out in 2012 on the 3DS.
Yeah.
And yes, it's an upgraded PS4 version. But still, I think the Switch should be able to run all of these just fine.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, not not even taking into account the individual games, like the actual collection came out on PS4 several years ago. It's not it's not like a recent release that
Yeah,
the system should be
because
struggling with.
the original 1.5 came out in 2013. 2.5 came out in, I want to say, 2014 or 2015. And then 2.8 came out in, I think, 2017. So, like, all of them should easily work on the Switch. I mean, heck, there's only 2 games per collection because one of the 3 in every collection is a movie.
Yeah,
And as far as Kingdom Hearts 2 and Rechain of Memories, those are PS2 games. So
yeah.
I honestly don't know. Like, it should be fine, but I don't know.
I don't know. It's a weird one.
I don't need it, but I'm hoping they put out an ultimate physical release for the Kingdom Hearts games on Switch because I would just like to have them on Switch.
Hmm.
And at this point I've committed to buying every version of every Kingdom Hearts game, and I
Yeah.
almost have them all.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, I think, didn't you say we had Assassin's Creed too?
Assassin's Creed, the Ezio collection, is coming to Switch on February 17th, which includes Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations.
Oh, I didn't realize that was not on Switch already.
I think they released the other collection with
The
the other
the
with the other
Americas
dude.
collection.
Mm.
Because I know that's been on Switch. Because that one is Assassin's Creed 3, Rogue, and is it Liberation? No, Black Flag. It's 3, Black Flag, and Rogue are a collection. It's called the Americas Collection. But yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those where, nice to have something on the Switch. It will absolutely play better on another system.
Yeah, I've never played an Assassin's Creed game, so it doesn't. There's no interest for me there.
I do enjoy the Assassin's Creed games, but I already have the Ezio collection, pre-owned, obviously, and I don't need extra copies of these games. Like like the Assassin's Creed, it's a series I enjoy, although I will not buy them new anymore. But it's also like, it's not like Final Fantasy or Zelda or Kingdom Hearts where I'm collecting. It's just I have the games. They
Yeah.
play better on Xbox. But anyway, that's all we really have in terms of releases. So now we can move on to the news, which there's not a ton of news, but there's the one really, really big one.
Yeah, like speaking of Xbox,
You've
um, this has been all over the place already. You will already have heard this.
probably heard this. This just in: PlayStation has no games.
Yeah, yeah. Microsoft bought or in the
They're
um,
they're in the process of acquiring Activision Blizzard King.
yes, which is huge because
Yeah,
that is one of the biggest games companies in the world, behind kind of like EA.
yeah.
And they have like a huge catalog of games. You've got the entire Warcraft, Starcraft, Diablo series. You have Call of Duty. You have Crash Bandicoot,
Spyro,
Spyro.
Tony Hawk, Guitar Hero,
Yeah,
um, and there are also a whole bunch of other properties that are owned by Activision or Blizzard. I think mostly Activision, but things that were bought up or included in other purchases. So there's a lot of potential IPs for Microsoft to work with this purchase. I mean, hell, they could start resurrecting old Blizzard IPs. We could see more Lost Vikings. I don't
Yeah.
think we will, but that would be
No.
cool.
I think they've wanted to get into mobile gaming as well, and now they own Candy Crush.
Yeah, that's where King comes in.
Mm. This is a lot bigger than the Bethesda acquisition from a couple years ago.
Yeah, because Bethesda, that one was like that one was a great meme for, a few weeks, but it wasn't a huge thing. I mean, this is massive.
Mm.
Like there's only a couple of companies that are this big. Like people have tossed around names like, Sony should buy Square Enix or should buy Capcom. And it's like those companies aren't as big as Activision Blizzard.
No, I mean Square isn't hugely far off, but
Yeah, I would say Square is probably like if Activision and Blizzard were still separate, Square would be somewhere in the middle.
yeah,
Because I mean they're in terms of clout with the fan base, they're probably as beloved as old Blizzard, except when they do weird stuff and everyone but me hates it. But like the big things to consider are no company is this big aside from EA and maybe Ubisoft, who have their own issues right now. And Sony doesn't have the money to do this.
no.
Like, the whole reason Microsoft can buy up these companies is because Microsoft is loaded. Because Microsoft has much, much more lucrative revenue streams than Xbox.
Yeah.
What this does is 5-10 years down the line, Xbox could be as lucrative as some of those other revenue streams.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if they play their cards right, if they continue to put out a quality service and they start putting out games from these companies and start having these exclusives, and in the case of Bethesda and some of the Activision stuff, give them a bump in quality, I could see Xbox being as lucrative as Windows. As someone who likes Xbox, that sounds great. That's also kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. It is verging on a monopoly at that point.
Yeah, it is. And Microsoft has already had problems with monopolies in the past.
Oh yeah, they had a big, massive lawsuit. Yeah.
Yeah, so because I want to say Microsoft is one of the companies that the federal government forced to split into two companies, and then
Yeah.
both companies just kept doing as well as they were before.
Yeah, it was part of the antitrust thing. I don't know the full details of it, but it was like a really big thing,
Well,
really big lawsuit.
the only reason I know as much about it as I do is because it's not the first time that's happened here. The AT&T phone company was forced to split in, I want to say it was like the like the late 80s, early 90s, and they split into AT&T and Bell South. And then sometime after 2000 they merged back together. So like that splitting one company into two companies is something that has happened in this country a few times, which is why it sticks out.
But as you say, with this acquisition, even with the split, they are huge.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, yes, the Call of Duty is confirmed to have contracts for the next few years to be on multiple systems. And obviously, everything Microsoft comes to PC day and date as well. But this, I think, is a huge expansion of what Microsoft are trying to work towards, which is the like lessening the focus on the hardware and more focusing on how can we put our software in more people's hands.
Yeah.
So this person doesn't want to or can't afford or whatever, isn't going to get an Xbox. How do we get them playing Xbox games? So, you put Game Pass on the phone with xCloud, which, by the way, works fantastically. I don't know if there still are plans, but there were plans to make a dedicated Game Pass streaming device that was just like a Fire Stick or a Roku that you just plug into your TV and connect to Game Pass. There have been rumblings of bringing Game Pass to Switch. That one, I don't know if it's going to happen. But
no, I cannot see that.
I mean, Microsoft and Nintendo have been playing nice lately. I don't know that they're playing that nice.
Yeah, I don't think Nintendo would allow that. Not when they have their own competing service on the system.
The thing. Without Nintendo Switch Online, I might say maybe, but I don't think that's happening. But Microsoft's focus lately has been, okay, hardware is almost always done at a loss. But, what if we didn't need the hardware? So, by picking up Activision Blizzard King, you get King, which has, mobile games galore. Activision has mobile games. Blizzard has mobile games. So by picking that up, you get all of that. And having mobile games will help them crack some of those regions that Xbox doesn't do well in.
Yeah, I mean, I completely forgot about Hearthstone as well. That's the big Blizzard phone game. Yeah.
I know there's at least 2 Call of Duty phone games. But yeah, Hearthstone is huge. But just between Hearthstone and Candy Crush, that's enough to bring in, millions of players.
Yeah.
And, one of the big things that that Xbox has been trying to do since it was created is break into Asian markets. And they've never managed it. This might work.
Because, especially with like Hearthstone.
Yeah, because like handheld and mobile gaming is massive in Japan and some of those other countries, and that's where they want to be. I mean, heck, they now own the official sport of South Korea.
StarCraft.
Yes. At least last I heard it was the official sport. It's concerning on some levels, but you can clearly see the logic of why they would want to do this. And they have now, okay, this is a statement by someone in the games industry, so, take it with the largest grain of salt you can find, but they have said they want to do more with some of these IPs that have been left drifting. They want to, they've made the blanket statements about, improving workplace culture and all that, but that, they were already saying those things.
It will be interesting to see if they can turn the fortunes of World of Warcraft around.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because that has been slowly dying a death for the past half a decade at least.
Yeah. And they already own 2 MMOs with Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76. The difference being Fallout 76 is already dead. And I mean, Elder Scrolls Online is still pretty active from what I understand.
Oh yes, it's one of the top 3.
But it's not WoW.
No.
And, the interesting thing there is, do they bring new talent and new leadership in to take control of some of these properties? And do we then see drastic increases or drops in quality as a result?
I would assume that for the most part, especially with like an MMO, you would want to keep roughly the same kind of teams.
Right.
I
But
mean, change out the management, change out the problematic people in the company, but in terms of kind of like pre-established teams that are already working on on an MMO,
right,
you're probably going to want to keep them on.
and at least for WoW, I think that's the best way to go about it, is to keep your developers and just replace the leadership, which, who knows, might bring in some new ideas. Now, you're going to have leadership that probably haven't worked on an MMO before. Of course, the best thing would be to, get rid of the leadership and promote somebody from within, but that's not really how these things go.
No.
In terms of the whole workplace culture thing and all the, shenanigans with Activision Blizzard, which the thing that cracks me up the most is the documents they filed related to the merger said that there was no legal action currently involving them. There were no strikes, and there were no. There's another one. It's like all blatant lies
Mm.
while they're in the middle of this massive kerfuffle. Now, one thing I am extremely concerned about is the workers, I think it's the Raven QA testers that,
Yeah, they've just unionized, or they are in the process of unionizing.
yeah, so they've voted, and I want to say it was like 78% voted for unionization.
Yeah.
So that process is currently underway. They're applying to the federal entity that oversees unions. But if I'm not mistaken, Microsoft is not very union friendly. So one of the first things they do could be to split all of those people up.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think Microsoft know that they are going to have a lot of eyes on them in that respect.
Yes, that is certainly true. They've already admitted that. I don't know. It would be a disastrous PR move to mess with that union, especially if it manages to exist before the merger, because then they can't really stop it. Like right now, the onus is all on Activision to fight this union, and honestly, they don't really have a whole lot of incentive because, why does it matter to them? They're, all those executives are walking out with millions at the end of this. Now, the announcement we've had so far is that Bobby Kotick will remain in place for now, which my assumption is that he's staying in place while all the, everything for the merger is happening, while they go through all the checks by the government and all of that process. And then once the merger actually happens, that's when he, ducks out with all of his money.
Yeah, with a hell of a lot of money, because the contract that has been floating around gives him one hell of a golden parachute.
It's like $300 million thereabouts.
Somewhere around there.
If he leaves as a result of a merger or something like that. And it's like, damn. It like, on the one hand, you hate to see someone get off scot-free. On the other hand, I'd rather see him gone, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Like, if he has to get a dump truck full of money and then he just disappears, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he doesn't start another company. But yeah, so that's what everyone's talking about right now, is this merger, because this is one of the biggest things to happen in gaming. Like, honestly, this might be one of the biggest shakeups since Xbox entered the fray. I mean, the original Xbox came out swinging, still fell short of the PS2, but it radically changed the industry. And this is up there in terms of the ripple effect felt throughout the games industry.
We should point out as well, it will be roughly a year and a half before everything goes through.
Yeah.
And we're probably not going to get a lot more information on what is happening in terms of kind of like Microsoft taking over these franchises and what they're going to be doing with them. We're probably not going to hear anything about that until after the merger, so there probably won't be much in the way of updates to this story for like over a year.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be, I think it's sometime 2023 is when the official, is when it would officially go through if it passes all checks and everything.
Yeah.
So, that's definitely something to keep in mind, is that there's not going to be new information for quite a while. Like once this initial fervor dies down and they've made all the statements they're going to make, they're going to stop making statements.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely something that anyone that has an interest in how the games industry works should be keeping an eye on. And I've made a lot of jokes the past couple of weeks, at PlayStation's expense, but it's only because I've had to listen to it for 8 years because I like Xbox better than PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's all games. I enjoy PlayStation. I just like the Xbox better. So I don't have that much stake in it. I'm more interested to see if we get new and interesting games out of it.
Yeah.
Whether stuff is, Game Pass, Game Pass Day One or Xbox exclusive, that's less interesting to me than if they decide to resurrect Guitar Hero or bring back some other old properties that Activision hasn't done anything with. And yes, the business side of things is a little scary, but that's American capitalism for you.
Yeah.
So to keep us from just going in circles, I think we'll take a quick break and move on to the topic for this episode.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, so our topic for this month, we're actually doing a developer special, which is the first one of these that we've done. And we're going to be talking about Rare. I think Rare Limited is the official name. So this is a company that a lot of people are familiar with, even if they don't know that it's Rare. Some of their biggest games that a lot of people will know about are things like Battletoads and Viva Pinata, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and of course there's GoldenEye, which is one of the biggest ones, and then the Donkey Kong Country games and Banjo-Kazooie. But they also, they go back a lot further than that. Rare itself was formed in 1985, but the actual start of this team was the formation of Ultimate Play the Game, a company formed in 1982 by Tim and Chris Stamper. And I think you know more about this era than I do.
Yes, basically, they started releasing a bunch of games for the microcomputers, most notably the ZX Spectrum, but they also released stuff for the Amstrad CPC, BBC Micro, MSX, Commodore 64. Their first one was Jetpack for the Spectrum back in '83, which is a really good game, actually. Even now, that is a really solid game. And they released quite a lot of really, really popular games. Some of the most popular games for the Spectrum were released by Ultimate. And they were eventually bought out by US Gold. But around about that time, they started putting Rare Limited in their credits for the Ultimate games, and that eventually led to them forming their own Rare company out of like the ashes of Ultimate Play the game.
Yeah, so that's why if you look up Rare, everything there starts with Slalom on the NES and Famicom, but that would be why Rare Replay goes back even further, starting with Jetpack. I haven't actually played that one yet, but I'll have to give that one a try.
It's really solid. You play a guy with a jetpack, obviously, and you have to move around the screen, find pieces of your rocket so you can go home, whilst also managing your jetpack fuel and watching out for like the aliens and stuff that are around. It's definitely worth checking out.
Okay, but yeah, so they did they actually they did a fair bit for Nintendo early on. I don't know how many of those early ones are actually well known. I mean, it's Slalom, Wizards and Warriors. Actually, I didn't realize that was them. Did they do the second one? They did. Holy crap. Okay, so Wizards and Warriors 2 Iron Sword that's a game that I have enjoyed for a long, long time. That was one I used to play with my dad way back when. I had no idea it was made by Rare. That's insane.
I've never even heard of that one.
It's not a huge game. It's one of those games that we happen to have. So I remember it very clearly. But there's a lot here. And like there's bigger names attached to them. Like Acclaim are the ones that get credit for Wizards and Warriors on the box. But they're in this list of games developed by Rare. That's wild. And a lot of WWF games at this time. But anyway, I would say probably the most significant thing they made for the NES was Battletoads. That's probably if not the most famous, the most notorious.
Yep, for that horrible sewer level.
It's so bad. I can't stand it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Battletoads at all.
Yeah, I'm also not. So they did Battletoads. Pro-Am was a big thing for them. RC Pro-Am, and then I would argue where they really broke through and became, the big name that everyone knows was Donkey Kong Country in 1994.
Yeah, absolutely, for the Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Because the game really stood out, not least because it's a really solid platformer, but graphically it looks like it shouldn't be playing on a Super Nintendo, but it is. Yeah. It is gorgeous. It almost looks like claymation. I mean, it's not, but just the fluidity of the animations and the design of the sprites. The sprites themselves look 3D, and it is one of the best looking games on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, and we say that, and it's contending with things like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6, and there's the Mega Man games, the Mega Man X games, were really well done. Like, there's a lot of good looking stuff on the Super Nintendo. Donkey Kong Country is undoubtedly one of the best.
Yeah.
Like, especially for an early foray into 3D, it is ridiculous how well they did. Now, when they took that 3D and turned it into 2D for the Game Boy, then it became not so good. But
well, Donkey Kong Country is still 2D though, isn't it?
Well, it is, but like the the Donkey Kong Land, like those 3D models got kind of spritified, and it just doesn't look very good. But yeah, it is a 2D, side-scrolling platformer just using 3D models, and it just like even now, I would say it still looks good. And that's something that cannot be said for a lot of early 3D games.
They always seem to bring out like the best in the systems they work for. Like not just Donkey Kong Country, like Killer Instinct is a very fast-paced like fighting game. Like that would not run on the Mega Drive.
No.
There is no way in hell Killer Instinct would run on the Mega Drive, and it shouldn't be running on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
that fluid.
That one is also extremely impressive because they took an arcade game, which, arcade cabinets at the time you could generally put more into, and they made it run on the Super Nintendo, and they made it run well on the Super Nintendo.
If you look at the other major fighters of the time, it's a lot faster and more fluid than Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
And even back in the Spectrum days, the isometric engine that they built for Night Law was innovative at the time, and kind of like brought something new that the Spectrum really shouldn't have been able to handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like they were never afraid to take chances, and it paid off a lot. So they had 3 Donkey Kong Country games for the Super Nintendo. All 3 of them fantastic. I would say probably 1 and 2 are the highlights, and the third one is still good, but not as good as the first 2.
I've not played the third.
I played the third one back not long after it came out. We rented it, but I remember it not being quite as good as the others. But it's also hard to follow Donkey Kong Country 2. But then you move on to the N64 era, and during all of this with Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct, Nintendo bought, I think they almost bought half of Rare's stock. Like they got very close to owning a majority of the company, and basically made Rare games exclusive to Nintendo for quite a while. But you move into the N64 and you get Blast Corps, which was, from what I understand, it was a pretty good game. I've not played it. But then you get into GoldenEye. And, GoldenEye is one of the most famous games on the system, even if I think it's overrated.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of N64, I think of Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, and GoldenEye. Mm-hmm. Basically, those are the 3 games that immediately come to mind when I think of the N64.
Whereas when I think of the N64, I think of Super Mario 64, obviously. I think of the Mario Party games, because that's where they started. And I think of Diddy Kong Racing. Because to me, Diddy Kong Racing is hands down my favorite game by Rare, and it's by far the one I've played the most of.
Going back to GoldenEye, which, as you said, is kind of overrated. I do agree with that, especially since they perfected that formula with Perfect Dark.
Right.
Perfect Dark is the better game. It uses the same engine. It's the same gameplay style. The story's weird, but it is absolutely the better game.
Honestly, I never played GoldenEye or Perfect Dark until we covered them on the podcast, but I definitely enjoyed Perfect Dark more. And then, they obviously released Banjo-Kazooie, which was, one of the, it might be a little overshadowed being on the N64 where there were so many huge games, but it was up there.
Yeah, and I mean, it was one of the very first non-Nintendo collectathon platformers.
Mm-hmm. And I would say it absolutely can go toe to toe with Mario 64.
Yeah.
Now, I've not played the sequel, Banjo-Tooie. I'm sure we'll end up covering it at some point. But from what I understand, that one was received just as well.
Yeah, I've not played that myself.
And then they also did Conker's Bad Fur Day, which was, most notorious for. I think it was rated M, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, which a rated M game on a Nintendo system was a little weird.
And I
But,
mean, they market it as mature content, but it's just childish, really, to be honest.
It really is. So there's that. There's Donkey Kong 64, which was, from what I understand, not as well received as Donkey Kong Country.
No, it's very, very buggy.
Mm-hmm. There's a few other games in there, but the really significant change for Rare came in 2002 when Microsoft purchased Rare. People have talked about, why didn't Nintendo buy them? Apparently, Rare doesn't know why either. So, Microsoft bought them in 2002. Now, obviously, they became a first-party developer for the Xbox.
Kind of sad the timing as well, because Donkey Kong Racing was in development at the time for the GameCube, and that is lost to the ether now.
That one hurts, because as much as I love Diddy Kong Racing, I always wanted another one, and then I found out that there was another one. We just lost it because of the buyout.
Yeah, and I'm not a particularly big fan of the GameCube Mario Kart, so that could have potentially ended up being my favorite kart game on the GameCube, but no, we will never know.
Yeah. So they made a couple of more games for the Game Boy Advance, mainly because Microsoft didn't have anything in the handheld market, and still don't really. I'm trying to think what the first big one for Xbox was.
The very first one that they released when, like, under Microsoft's control was Grabbed by the Ghoulies.
Ah, that's right. It's another one I haven't played, which is why I didn't think about it.
Yeah, I've not either.
They had that one. Again, a couple of smaller things. They released a remake of Diddy Kong Racing for the DS, which was not as good. They released a remake of Conker's Bad Fur Day for the Xbox. And then I think after that, they went on to the Xbox 360.
Yeah, and you get stuff like Perfect Dark Zero, which I've played the first level of, and I hated it so much I've never gone further.
Yeah, I think Adam has blasted it in the past as well.
But like one of their biggest games for the 360 is Viva Pinata.
Yeah, which is like I never thought about it before until I saw it on Rare Replay, and I was like, oh my god, it makes so much sense that was Rare. Like, the company known for colorful games made a colorful game. I should not have been surprised by that. So they did Viva Pinata. They made the Viva Pinata sequel, the Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which a lot of people didn't like because it wasn't like the other Banjo-Kazooie games. I think it's after that they got relegated to working on Kinect games. We say relegated, like Kinect was supposed to be a big deal, but it wasn't.
It kind of flopped, and unfortunately, Rare haven't really done anything notable since being relegated to Kinect. I mean, obviously, not working on Kinect games anymore,
Right.
but Like they did Sea of Thieves, which got mixed reviews.
I don't know. It's I think it's done pretty well. Microsoft said it's the most successful IP released in the eighth generation, which that feels kind of odd. Although I guess they're talking about new IPs because I can't imagine this outsold any Halo.
No.
But I mean, I tried Sea of Thieves. It's one of those games that could be fun, but you really need a group to play with because otherwise you're just kind of wandering around. I think they're either working on or released Battletoads like revamp.
Yeah, a remaster came out for Battletoads in the past couple of years, I think, but apparently it wasn't very good.
Yeah, I had forgotten that it came out, and then I think they contributed some to Banjo and Kazooie's presence in Smash. I don't think they did any actual coding work, but I think they like were consulted in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean they would have shared stuff like design documents and stuff like that
Right.
for the characters.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of where we're at. There's they've got an action adventure game called Everwild that they've announced. But it's one of those companies that did the one thing. Well, actually, not even the one thing. They had a period where they, you know, exploded and did almost everything right, and then just faded away.
Yeah, they're almost forgotten now, to be honest. If it wasn't for the Rare Replay compilation, um, a lot of the, especially later stuff, people wouldn't even remember at all.
Right.
I mean, obviously you have all the iconic titles on there, but a lot of the later stuff on there, like you just wouldn't associate it with Rare, and right. It wouldn't even cross your radar really.
Yeah, and it really is a shame because like Rare Replay is great. I do think it's an incomplete collection because you're missing some of their games that were the biggest, but that's all licensing issues. There's nothing they can really do about that.
Yeah, you can't have the Nintendo IP games in there like Donkey Kongs and stuff. And
yeah, and you can't have GoldenEye because the James Bond IP is always kind of a mess to deal with.
Yeah, but it does include most of their other notable games.
Yes. It's all the games that they owned the intellectual property for. So I'm guessing that's why there's so many of these games early on that I've heard of. Like I've seen these games, but didn't know they were made by Rare because they were published under something else. And that other company, whoever they may be, owns the IP. They're still a good company. Like I've spent a lot of time on Rare games in the past, and I fully intend to play more of them. Like I need to explore the rest of Rare Replay. But speaking of Rare Replay, we were able to use that for our games we're focusing in on for this episode. So we will take a brief break and go into the first game that we're focusing on.
Whoa!
So the first game we're going to talk about is one of those games that was developed by Ultimate Play the Game for the Spectrum, and it's Saberwolf, which has I think this is one of their early games that had the most impact. I'm assuming the Killer Instinct character was named after this.
It was, yes.
Yeah, so this one you are controlling, what's his name? Saberman?
Yeah, his name is Saberman.
So you're navigating this character through a maze, trying to collect. What were we collecting?
It's amulet pieces. You need to collect 4 amulet pieces because
Gotcha.
basically at the exit point there is a guardian who will not let you pass if you don't have all 4 pieces of the amulet.
Yeah, I didn't get terribly far in this one, just because I usually don't do well when we play the Spectrum games. Those games were hard.
The difficulty is really up there, to be honest. You die really easily. You do have an attack. You have a saber which you can swing in front of you. That's why it's called Saberman. And basically, your strategy is just hold the attack down, and it'll just keep doing the saber attack. And you can kind of like mow down enemies, but there are certain enemies that you can't kill, and you can just scare away. Like there were these knights and hippos and stuff. And you have to kind of like look which direction they're going, because if they hit a wall, they'll come back to you. And it is incredibly difficult, and you do die really easily.
Yeah, I think I managed to find all of the enemies that you couldn't kill. Like I'd just be sitting there flailing and not hitting the enemies.
Yeah, it's a bit fiddly with enemies coming from above or below. You have to be kind of like line of sight with them to actually hit them.
Okay.
But there is one special enemy in the game that you can't kill or can't turn away, and that is a saber wolf, which you generally don't see it very often at all. But when you do see it, basically just run. The manual says run when you see it, because you can't kill it. It will chase you, and yeah, it will just kill you in one shot. But this game, it's very difficult to play without cheats, honestly. Luckily, the rare replay version allows you to put on infinite lives. And honestly, I think that's kind of essential. I mean, obviously, back in the day, people would get through the game, but I personally don't know anyone who beat Saberwolf, like without cheats. But having infinite lives, and back when it was on the Spectrum as well, you could the cheats for Spectrum games, they kind of called them pokes. And basically what that meant, you're basically inserting lines of code into the game to change the way it works. And people were able to get infinite lives that way. So, you could get through the game, because there are 256 screens to this maze. And enemies are coming at you constantly. If you stay on the screen for more than about 10 seconds, a bushfire will start and start to chase you. So you really have to keep moving fast, and it is just huge. Even for a Spectrum game, it is absolutely massive. The best strategy, I would say, is print out a map and just have that next to you while you're playing it, because otherwise you're just going to be wandering in circles for like a very long time trying to find these 4 amulet pieces.
Yeah, that was what I did.
But honestly, with the infinite lives on, I do enjoy this game. It's incredibly colorful, especially for like a Spectrum game. Like a hell of a lot of like really bright colors on the environment
Oh yeah.
and stuff like that, and on the enemies. And the Spectrum kind of like had this issue with color. Basically, color clash was a really big thing on the Spectrum. If you had a lot of sprites of like different colors, if they walk past each other, they'd end up all blocky, and the colors would bleed into each other, which is why a lot of early Spectrum games are very colorful. But as you go further along into the lifespan of the Spectrum, a lot of games started to become kind of monochrome, because as bigger companies were putting out games and putting more money into games, they wanted their screenshots to look pristine. They didn't want color clash all over their screenshots in like magazines and reviews and stuff like that. So if they made their games monochrome, didn't have to worry about that. You know, kind of like take a game like RoboCop on the Spectrum, which looks fantastic, but it's grey.
Right.
But this is one of the early titles that does use a lot of color, and yeah, there is color clash, but it's not really. It doesn't affect the gameplay, and I think it adds to the game having all this color there.
I mean, I personally would rather have all that color than just a flat gray.
Yeah. And color does play a part in this game as well, because you can get power-ups from flowers. I think there's about 5 different color flowers, or there might be 4, and they all give you kind of like different power-ups, or in the case of the yellow one, it kind of like stuns you for a few seconds. But there's an invulnerability one. There's one that makes you move really fast for a while, and it is using those flowers that you're going to get further into the game, basically. When you get like the invulnerability flower, or the one that lets you move fast, you can just like zoom through a few maps without having to worry about taking damage, and that'll help you like find these amulets, because they're not actually in specific places as well. They're in random places on any clearing, and there's a lot of clearings, because like I said, there's 250 screens in total. Obviously not all of those are clearings, but there are a lot. So you do have to kind of like go to like all corners of the map to try and find these things, and those power-ups will help you quite a lot.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I need to try again with the cheats on, because there's a lot of this game that I just didn't see.
Yeah. Because if you just have those 3 lives, you will die immediately. I mean, if you don't move immediately when starting the game, you will die in about 2 seconds, because enemies will spawn and just kill you straight away. Now, personally, what I think would have enhanced this game, rather than having kind of like an infinite lives cheat, just don't have enemies respawn. And I think that would have made the game a lot more bearable and a lot more enjoyable overall. And it would also help you to see where you haven't been in the map as well.
Right. Because in the time before in-game maps, you would have needed a way to tell. And unless you have somehow memorized the layout of all these screens, you're going to walk into a screen and be like, wait, have I been here before?
Yeah, because a lot of them do look very, very similar.
Yeah, I do remember that, getting lost and never figuring out if I was going in circles, because then I died.
Like when I played it for this, I had the infinite lives cheat on, and for about half an hour, I was wandering around. I managed to find 3 pieces of the amulet.
Mhm.
I just could not find the 4th. It was there somewhere, but I just could not find it at all.
Yeah, so I'll definitely check this one out again. I mean, I'm sure at some point I'll just sit down and go through uh, a lot of these older games from Rare Replay, just because like it is a very interesting, it's a very interesting look into uh, how things were made back then, and kind of the roots of this company. But yeah, like I think what I'm looking at here says there's indigenous people, sleeping hippos. Like I never saw any of that. I never saw the wolf. I think most of my time was spent with spiders.
Yeah, I think in my half hour that I was doing it for this, I only saw the wolf twice. So it is very rare.
Yeah, which I mean, if it's a very fast, unstoppable force, then that's probably a good thing.
Mm. But it is interesting because this game does actually have 3 sequels, and in like canonically in the lore, he must get bitten by Saber Wolf because he is actually a werewolf in some of the other games.
Okay.
Like in one of the other games that we're going to talk about shortly, it is the same character, and he's now a werewolf because he's been bitten by the Saber Wolf.
Speaking of things I didn't see, yeah, this definitely sounds interesting. I can see why it's uh, such a tentpole for their early work, and why they made a bunch of sequels to it. Because I mean, I would imagine at the time this was probably huge.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This is one of the biggest early Spectrum games.
Yeah, so I can see it. I can tell this was a big deal back then, so it's definitely worth revisiting.
Yeah, just make sure you put on that Infinite Lives cheat. I mean, obviously, if you're not playing it on Rare Replay, then you might have difficulty doing that. But put that on, print out a map, and play it with those 2 things, and you will have a much better time with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be enjoyable to draw a map, but I don't know if you really if that's really feasible while trying to run around in this.
Oh no, probably not. But there are people who have made maps,
Oh, I'm sure.
so yeah, there is a really really nice hand drawn one actually. That's all colourful and yeah, but any map will do. Just you can play it without one, but I would recommend using one.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely try that. I think with that, we'll move on to the next game. So we'll take a quick break and come back with that.
Okay.
So the second game that we're covering on this rare special is Night Lore, which is the third game in the. Is it called the Saber Wolf series?
No, it's just it contains the same character, Saberman, but it doesn't really have like a series name as
Right.
such.
They're just sequels.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just four games with the same character.
Okay. This one I actually remember more of. I think I spent more time in this one than I did in Saberwolf. I still didn't get very far because these games are tough. But this one, Saberman has been bitten by the wolf and turns into a werewolf at night. And once again, you're running around collecting stuff, except this time you have a time limit. And you're looking for a way to cure the curse. Is that right?
Yes. You need to collect objects around the world, around the castle, and then bring them to a cauldron in order to make a cure for your curse.
Okay.
Now, one of the most striking things about this game is the isometric graphic style, which was really innovative back then, and it really got a lot of eyes on this game. Like this is one of the most popular games on the Spectrum, and it does look decent. Despite it not being as colorful as Saberwolf, it does have, again, the monochrome graphics, but each room has like a different kind of like tint to it. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of this game. I find isometric stuff generally difficult as it is, but the fact that this game includes a lot of platforming with an isometric style, I really struggle with depth perception on stuff like this, and knowing where platforms are in relation to other platforms. It was a problem I ran into on that Saturn RPG we played in another episode.
Yeah.
Dark something, which is a game that I enjoyed, but I was struggling at times with the isometric platforming. And this entire game is all about platforming obstacles in the room and avoiding enemies. And personally, I just can't see where the enemies are in relation to me, in order to be able to move around fast enough.
Well, I will say it's not just you, because I actually enjoy isometric games. I mean, the Diablo series are some of my favorite games. I really like XCOM. So, like, I have a lot of enjoyment with isometric games, and I'm used to the format. I'm not used to platforming in an isometric view. And like even Diablo has this problem where you'll have trouble seeing where a wall is or where a ledge is in the from that perspective. I had a hard time with this one, and yes, that could be because it's such an early example of isometric, but it's still, I struggled. Like, I would go to make a jump and completely miss. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I need to try something different.
A lot of people really enjoyed this game, and if your brain kind of works that way, where you can see isometric stuff and immediately know where stuff is in relation to that. I mean, some people's brains work differently, and my brain works differently, and
right.
And I just can't really see that stuff, But like I say, it was very innovative, and it is definitely a better game than Underworld, which was the second Saberman game. That is like a 2D platformer, and Underworld is garbage. Underworld is absolute garbage. This one is at least playable, and again, with the Rare Replay release, it does give you infinite lives, and it removes the time limit as well if you want to do that, because you have 40 days to get these objects, and time's like going on, and you'll turn into a werewolf at night and then turn back into a man in the morning. And 40 days might sound like a lot, but it does drain quite fast, especially when you're having to find all these different things around the castle. And again, you don't, like as with Saberwolf, you don't really know where you're going. You're just kind of like wandering aimlessly, which again is another reason why this is another game that you should print out a map, really.
Yeah, that was one thing is like I'm looking at all these different directions I can go and I'm like, "Oh, this is not going to go well for me."
Yeah, and you have multiple places that you can actually start in as well, which doesn't help.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you don't always start in the same place. Interestingly, an interesting fact about this game, even though it was the third Saberman game, this was the first one to actually get completed. But
Oh,
they
okay.
but they kind of like sat on it for a little while and released it as the third game.
Interesting because like chronologically it kind of would make sense for Saberwolf to be first because he's not a werewolf in that one.
Yeah, I mean maybe they already had the other games kind of like in mind at the time.
Right.
Because I
It's just
believe
that
they were probably working on games concurrently as well.
oh, I'm sure. This page is talking about the tech they use to give the illusion of depth, which is why this one was so innovative. Okay, well, that's cool.
Yeah, they called it Filmation, and they used it for a lot of other games as well. The follow up to this, Pentagram, also used that isometric style and also used their Filmation technique. I've never played Pentagram, so I don't know what it's like, but it is another isometric kind of game.
Well, I mean, I imagine if you come up with something, if you come up with a big thing like that, you're gonna use it more than once.
I believe they did 3 or 4 games with this engine. There was another one called Alienate, which isn't part of the Same Man series, but is another one that used that style. I don't remember if Alienate is actually on Rare Replay though.
I don't know. I will be perfectly honest. I tend to skip over all of those early games when I go to Rare Replay because I'm usually going for some of the later stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're talking about all the stuff that up until Rare Replay I had never heard of. That said, I'm really glad this exists because it gives me a quick and easy way to experience all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about one of the titans of game development in my formative years, and outside of the Nintendo stuff, this is all of their best work.
Yeah, and Underworld. Which just skip over that in Rare Replay. Seriously, it is some of the worst platforming that I've ever experienced. It is horrible.
So it looks like Pentagram isn't in Rare Replay. It goes straight from Night Lore to Gunfight. So,
yeah, but I mean that's not really an issue in terms of the collection. These games are easily emulatable.
right. I mean, the Spectrum is not that difficult to emulate, and the games aren't hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, I do actually have like a physical copy of Saberwolf. I don't think I have a physical copy of Night Lore. I might do. I could check on my shelf, but it would mean getting up from my seat.
Right.
So that's not happening. But yeah, like Night Lore, definitely innovative. Absolutely one of the most popular games on the Spectrum. I just struggle with it. But having the cheats on does negate some of that.
Yeah, I feel like if I went into this with the cheats, it would be a little more like this would be a little more up my alley. Just being able to freely explore and like, because I feel like the puzzles in this would be more my thing than trying to fight stuff in Saberwolf.
Yeah.
It's like okay, I see the thing, I need to figure out how to get to it. That's a little more my speed than basically flailing for my life.
Yeah, and I mean this game doesn't actually have combat.
Right.
It is all puzzles and some stuff like it does make use of the werewolf mechanic as well, because the werewolf can jump higher. So it does have that mechanic that varies things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is a nice looking game as well. I mean, despite the lack of varying colors on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, like the one thing I will absolutely give to Spectrum games is like they all look good visually. Like even if the colors get a little blended together, they still, you know, if you're playing one of those games, then the colors are popping, and that's really I enjoy that. I enjoy colorful games. That's why I'm not a big fan of games like Gears of War or you know some of the Battlefields, because like it's all one color.
Yeah.
But that's one of the hallmarks of Rare, I think, is the color. Like those, bright colors, and that's one of the things that makes Banjo so memorable, is how bright and colorful that world is.
Yeah, and like Viva Pinata as well is
Oh yeah,
incredibly colorful.
like I've heard people say Viva Pinata may be one of the best looking games from that generation, and it's purely because of the color and the art style.
Mm.
Just like people say that Wind Waker is one of the best looking Zelda games that still looks great, because it's got more. It's more art direction rather than photorealism.
And it's the reason that World of Warcraft doesn't look as aged as it should do, because it has a very cartoony style to it.
Yeah, like that, and that absolutely works in its favor. Whereas Diablo, which looks more realistic, you can tell.
Yeah.
Night Lore it seems like something I'll enjoy a little bit more than Saberwolf. So again, I'll give this one a try with cheats and see how that goes. But yeah, I mean I can see why it was a big deal, and knowing some of the background, like this new engine that basically changed things. That's very cool. Like,
Yeah.
as someone who's like, I'm not interested enough to try making games myself, but who's just kind of generally interested in how things work, it's kind of a cool thing to know.
Yeah.
I think we've pretty much covered here, and so we'll take a quick break, move on to our third and final game, and it is not another Saberman game. We're actually jumping forward quite a bit into what would be called the Nintendo era.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we will be right back. All right, so our third game in this Rare Special, and the last one we're going to talk about this time, I'm sure we'll cover more Rare games in the future, is Jet Force Gemini. We wanted to get one of the N64 games in, and we've covered most of them. So this is one that, again, I had never heard of until Rare Replay, and when I started digging more into Rare's past. Did you have any experience with this beforehand?
I also hadn't heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, coming in between things like I think it was after GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, it was.
So like coming on the heels of GoldenEye and Banjo-Kazooie, that's kind of gonna get lost in the shuffle. But yeah, so Jet Force Gemini is I'm gonna generously call it a third-person shooter. It does not control like nowadays. You think of third-person shooter, you think Gears of War, Mass Effect, that style of game. This does not control like that at all. And we had the benefit of a redesigned control scheme for the Xbox One. I can only imagine what this is like on the N64.
Well, actually, I would I would hazard a guess that the N64 actually controls better because it's designed for that pad.
That's a
And
fair point.
I mean, I wasn't able to try that because I don't have a physical copy of this. I had to play on Rare Replay. But
Right.
I would assume playing with the N64 pad would be a better experience than what we had with an Xbox One pad.
I suppose I could try this. If I track down a ROM, I could try this with my 8-bit Do. No, it's not an 8-bit Do, it's Retro Fighters. My Retro Fighters N64 controller. I could see how that goes. I don't know, but this game, it felt weird to control, and I never did like I never got a solid grasp on aiming without the dedicated aim button. It was more of just kind of, spray bullets and hope.
Yeah, I mean, for the smaller enemies, if you are facing generally their direction, then it will automatically fire in their direction. There is a slight amount of aim assist
Right.
in that sense, but that only works for ground enemies.
Right. If something's up in a tree or whatever, then you're gonna have to manually aim that.
But for me, the controls are what stopped me really enjoying this game. I mean, it's a weird thing where I think the game is good, but I can't enjoy it because of the controls.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way it's mapped onto the Xbox One controller, you have strafe on one of the thumbsticks and moving on the other, and that strafe one really needs to be camera look.
Mm-hmm.
I believe if you had camera look on one and move on the other, I'd be fine with it. The camera itself, when you're moving around, it will move around to the back of you as you're moving forward, but it will do it very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really see what's in front of you for a few seconds because the camera will just slowly move behind you as you're moving. And it isn't until you press the manual aim button that the camera will snap back immediately to directly behind you.
Right.
In my opinion, if that camera did stay behind you at all times, or had an option for you to move the camera, like have the camera look, then it would have been bearable.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I didn't get terribly, terribly far, but I got far enough in that, I kind of got a feel for it. Like I could semi-reliably shoot down enemies, and you have the big swarms, and I got a couple of different guns to work with. So it doesn't take long to kind of get the gist. Um, it was There was an amusing bit. The first NPC you see, um, when I saw them, I didn't see what they were. I just saw something on the screen, so I shot at it. And then he actually comments on you shooting at him.
Yeah. I didn't see that because I didn't shoot him.
Yeah, I shot at him and he made a comment. He's like, what the heck, man? I will say, like, in terms of presentation, if I saw this and didn't know it was Rare, I would immediately think of Rare because it has that look.
Yeah.
Of those Rare N64 games.
Yeah, I mean they are all system pushers.
Right.
Even back when the N64, even when they were doing N64 games, you know, they still look really, really decent.
Yeah. Like and it's got that colorful presentation, that art style that is very unique to Rare. The main gripe I have appearance wise is what was her name? The female character's skirt is the shortest skirt I have ever seen. Like, I saw that and I'm like, there's no way she's not flashing everyone constantly. And not 5 seconds later, we get a panty shot. And I'm like, yep, that's about expected.
I know you can actually choose to play as different characters, but I didn't realize that at the start. So I just played as like the male character, so I didn't really see too much of that. But yeah, I have seen like videos since, and it is a bit much.
Yeah. Like I'm not exaggerating, you know, I saw this character made a comment, and then within 10 seconds was proven right. Like, ugh.
But the game itself, though, I didn't really follow the story to be too honest, because I didn't really care too much about the story. But you are saving hostages from these insects. I believe you're on a different world, and these alien insects are invading, and you have to like save the natives.
Right.
I think the story is something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
So it's very sci-fi themed. You have laser guns, and you get a machine gun and a plasma gun and stuff like that. And there are very like industrial settings as well. There's like warehouses and stuff like that. So it is kind of like a futuristic looking game. I'm assuming the natives aren't very technologically advanced because they don't have guns. They seem like quite simply dressed, and you know, I'm guessing that they've just been invaded by this technologically superior force.
Right. That does seem to be what's going on.
I mean, I could have paid attention during the cutscene, but the thing is with this game, you know, it's solid game from what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Just I couldn't control it. Like I can understand now the people that that go back to kind of like Resident Evil, or even Resident Evil 4 would be a better comparison, and they just can't get the hang of the controls, and they can see that like it's a really solid game, but Resident Evil 4, the controls for me are fine, you know, but it does take some getting used to. The controls in this game are just too archaic for me to really get a handle on them, and this is after kind of like 2 hours of gameplay. I still was struggling with those controls, and it's a shame because the game seems decent, but just I couldn't get over that hump.
It does seem like there's a quality game in here. I just, you know, I didn't get far enough to see all of it, but It's definitely worth digging deeper into. I mean, I was able to control it well enough. I could manage, but like you said, it's definitely an adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like getting used to it, but there was still a lot of places where the controls just didn't do what I wanted them to do, and I was getting very frustrated with it.
Right.
But I did get like a fair way in, and eventually I got to this room which had a conveyor belt which was going down, and I couldn't jump up it. And I'd gone through quite a large section to get to that point, and I couldn't work out how to progress, and I couldn't be asked to go all the way back to
Mm-hmm.
find a different route. So I kind of like left it there. There probably was something obvious that I was missing, but yeah, I just decided I didn't want to fight these controls anymore, and I just couldn't be doing with it anymore, so I just stopped it there.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't blame you. It's it can be rough, but like I said, I'll dig in, see if I can get further in and experience some more of it.
Yeah, like you said, maybe try it with a ROM and your replica controller,
Mm-hmm.
and see if that makes things a little bit easier.
I think I'll definitely try that. Um, I think there's you can tell which games were uh, better optimized for the Xbox. Like Banjo Kazooie plays great on the Xbox. I think specifically because they made the didn't they make an Xbox 360 version?
Yeah, the version on Rare Replay is the Xbox 360 version.
Yeah, so like that one plays absolutely fine on Rare Replay, but that's because they made a dedicated version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's like most Rare games, it's even if it's not blowing my mind, it's still good enough to dig deeper and give another shot.
There are interesting things there as well. Like they were kind of like secrets in one of like the hub areas. I noticed that if you do a little bit of platforming, which with the camera, the platforming is horrible. I don't recommend it, but I did actually
Right.
persevere and managed to get right to the top of all these crates, and there was kind of like a new gun there, I believe it
Mm-hmm.
was, or it might have been an upgrade or something like that. So exploration is rewarded, and there is another area quite early on where there's a door on the other side of a really far, like, open chasm. I couldn't work out how to get there. I'm assuming maybe you come back after getting an upgrade or something like that. Um, so it looks like there is replay value as well to going back to old levels and stuff like that.
Right, to see what you missed before.
Yeah. So there
Yeah.
is there is interesting stuff there, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean for, if you've got Rare Replay, it you might as well check the games out. So I'll definitely give this more time, when I've uh but honestly I'll probably sit down and do, you know, a lot of just put a lot of time into these games. Honestly, I'll probably record a lot of them because I don't think I have any of these games recorded in any capacity.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Rare, it's like they did a lot of varied games. Like Rare Replay has like such huge variety
Mm-hmm.
of games on there, and it's like I mean, I've had an Xbox probably 2 years. Um, that is the only disc that has ever been in the system since I've had it. I have never put another disc other than Rare Replay in that system. I've played other games that I've downloaded from the store, but the only disc that I've put in is Rare Replay.
Oh, I have a ton of discs. Like, when I play Final Fantasy 13 on here, I play with the disc.
You see, I played that on PlayStation, so I didn't have to do that. But
so did I the first time. But
yeah,
I've got I wanted to play the Xbox version when I recorded it, and I just ended up using the disc because I don't think it was on Game Pass yet. I mean, it is now, but
at least it is. It is until PlayStation by Square Enix anyway.
See, we say that Microsoft is actually the one that is in the past shown an interest in buying Square, and they've always told them to fuck off.
Well, they have always had a better relationship with PlayStation anyway, because a lot of their games have been PlayStation exclusives, especially Final Fantasy ones.
Yeah. And the ones that weren't were Nintendo exclusives from back then.
But we shouldn't go on a Final Fantasy tangent.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, now is the perfect time for us to work in a Final Fantasy episode, while it's just the two of us.
Yeah. Well, make it two that we've already played, and then it'll be like an easy one, won't it?
I don't know if we can talk about 13 yet.
No, but we can talk about 10.
We definitely talk about 10. Maybe we pick one that, well, we pick one that you haven't played yet, but give you enough of a lead up time to play through it.
Yeah, they're all easily available now because the early ones are coming on the Pixel remasters. So
yep.
But yeah, anyway, Jeff Force Gemini.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're basically done. Like, it's the game's okay. Controls are a little wonky, but that's this is early in 64. The controls were always a little wonky. Except for Super Mario 64, which had, I would argue they had pretty good controls.
Oh yeah. It was absolutely solid. As was Mario Kart. But Mario Kart isn't really complicated in terms of controls, so
nah. But yeah, so that's about all we have to say on Jet Force Gemini. So we'll take another small break and come back to finish up.
Okay.
All right, so that's our rare special. It's a company that meant a lot to me growing up. I know was a big deal for. I think it was a big deal for all four of us.
Yeah. Me more for the Spectrum titles. I mean, I did play a lot of these Spectrum games growing up.
And I think Perfect Dark is like Adam's favorite game ever.
Yeah. And we all like Banjo.
Oh yeah, we all like Banjo. But yeah, so it's Rare is a good company. I really hope we get to see more from them in the future. It's not how things have played out so far, but you never know.
And hopefully with the recent Microsoft Activision Blizzard purchase, we'll see maybe a Blizzard replay or something like that.
Oh, that would be amazing. Well, actually, we already have that.
What, piracy?
No. Actually, no. There is actually there's a Blizzard collection, and it's like Rare Replay. It's like a big anniversary thing, but it has it basically has all of their early games that aren't Diablo, Warcraft, StarCraft. Oh, let me look this up because I'm gonna hate myself.
So like Lost Vikings, Rock and Roll Racing, stuff like that.
Blizzard 30-year celebration collection, I think. Yeah. Lost Vikings, Rock and Roll Racing, Blackthorn, Lost Vikings 2, RPM Racing, and then in-game items for Overwatch and Diablo 3.
Oh, that completely passed me by.
Yeah, no, like there's already been a similar one. There's just less games in it. I've had it bookmarked on Switch for a long time, basically since it came out, specifically for Lost Vikings.
Rock and Roll Racing is also solid, but maybe we can see something a little bit more comprehensive.
Yeah,
With the original versions of some of the games that Blizzard have butchered with their remasters.
yeah, because now, like, see, I actually think the Diablo 2 remaster was pretty good. Um, so I'm fine with that being the version of Diablo 2 that we have on consoles. I would like an upgraded version of the original.
Yeah, and Warcraft 3 is excellent, and it deserves to have the original version available.
Oh yeah, that entire mess. I guess we can talk about that when we eventually cover it.
Yeah, but anyway, back to Rare. As you were saying, a lot of us have like a lot of history with the company, and that's why we decided to do this as kind of like our first developer spotlight, and also the fact that we both have Rare Replay, which made it really easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if we had Adam and Ryan here, I think they also have Rare Replay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that, like, if we're going to talk about developers, there are very few that had as meteoric a rise as Rare, especially during the time that we were predominantly coming up, and well, I think we're all close enough that we were mostly growing up with Rare games.
Yeah, I mean, more so for you three. I mean,
You,
I'm a bit older,
you
but
grew up on a different era of Rare games.
yeah.
But yeah, it's it was an easy pick for our first developer special, and it obviously one we can come back to because there's plenty we haven't talked about. I do intend to maybe not on the podcast, but I intend to give Diddy Kong Racing DS a thrashing in some capacity. But for now, there isn't much left for us to do except say goodbye, and we will see you next time.
Yes, we will.
So, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Whoa! Woohoo! Ahoo! Ahai! Oh! Oh! Ow! Yow! Oh! Ah!